Hey, Mike Edwards here. I'm here with my very dear friend, Lyssa Adkins. Hi, Lyssa.
Hello.
And welcome to Empowered Until Further Notice. Now, if you join us live, please put things into the comments, questions or whatever it might be, because we'll bring them up and we'll talk about them. And so, Empowered Until Further Notice, what this is about is ideas. We all have them. We all have ones we're holding back. We all have ones we question, can they work? And it comes down to trusting yourself and being able to go with it. Empower the idea until further notice, until you have some better information. So, as I said, here with my very good friend, Lyssa. Lyssa, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm so glad to be with you, Mike. Mike and I have known each other in the agile coaching world for a number of years now. And that's the world where I am most known, I would say. I've, for a long time, have been known as the coach of agile coaches. Wrote the Coaching Agile Teams book, which more than a decade later is still the go-to source for so many people, even coming back to it 2 and 3 times later, again and again. Yeah, me too, actually.
Uh-huh.
I find some useful things and I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot about that.
And lately it's in Audible.
It's an Audible lately, and we also have a guided study and practice group to break it down into little metabolizable chunks. And that work happens with some recorded sessions and in a community, which is super yummy.
Oh, yeah.
That's available too. Yeah, and so that's what people know me for the most. And in the last few years, since sort of capping off my part of launching agile coaching as a profession and handing that over to many, many capable people, I've really been focused on the next bottleneck, which is leaders and leadership teams and what is the shift that they're asked to make. And so that's one piece. And the other piece I'm really focused on is the coming planetary crises and what Agilists and Agile itself might have as a role in helping us weather those storms, maybe pun intended. I didn't realize I was going to say that. No pun? Or pun. You take it whichever way you want.
Yeah, we'll take the pun. It's all good. Even though it doesn't feel very funny.
It's not very funny. But it is it's something to really, really focus on. And I think we have a great role to play.
Yeah. And I think as a community, we can have such an impact when it comes to this.
Yeah.
Right? Helping to save this planet.
Save the humans on the planet and save the planet along the way.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So in these video casts, if you've been watching them, I know many of you have been. I always ask my guests, what do you want to talk about? And I kind of lead in with something. And I just want to read what Lyssa sent to me because I think this is huge. And I think it also fits with what you just said about climate change and the impact we can have, never mind the work we do in the world elsewhere. And what Lyssa sent to me when I asked her what she wanted to talk about is this. I want to talk about accountability, the kind of personal accountability that coaching and agile make possible, and the kind of accountability that moves us away from blame and shame and towards learning and improvement. And it grabbed me instantly. I'm a part of the responsibility process community. We're talking the same language here, different words, sure. Right? But we're talking the same language. So maybe the place to start, if we're going to talk about accountability, is how do we want to hold ourselves accountable to this next 30 minutes?
Okay, great question. So to do that, I need to know just a little bit, like, Mike, what is your high dream for this podcast, this video cast series that we can sort of align ourselves around?
It goes back to the ideas. Right? Like there's so many different ways to think about topics and such. And I think too often people, they discount them because they seem too out there. Like, let's just use the one accountability. Like you and I both know, the word accountability in organizations is misused and misunderstood in so many different ways. No bad intent on people's part. But what if we can spark an idea that people would be willing to empower, right? And go for it. Give it a try.
Okay. Okay. So this is about the ideas, maybe some of them that people hold inside or hold back or think why me? I'm not the one to do this. You want to bring those forward and empower the action behind those ideas.
Right, right.
Okay.
'Cause too many people have great ideas and they might be thinking about like what we're about to talk about and think it's not possible here. But
Okay.
what impact could it have?
Okay. So I'll assign myself some homework and you see if this is, reasonable with what you want. So by the end of this time, what I will do is expose people to a new notion of accountability that comes from professional coaching, probably new for a lot of people,
Mhm.
um, and connect that in with the high dream of how it can help people bring their ideas forth.
Oh, I love that.
That sound good?
Yeah, I love that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So keep me on track.
That can be hard.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I know we can,
That's
there's so many places it could go, but this is
yeah,
actually really helpful to have this little bit of accountability that by the end of this session, we together will have pulled forth those two
I love
themes
that.
basically.
Yeah,
And how we'll know it's done is that we'll ask each other at the end, did we think we did it? And
yeah.
maybe if people are following along in the comments, they can tell us whether or not we did. That's a better barometer.
Yeah, that would be a good one. No, I think you guys are way off the rails here.
Yeah, exactly. Uh,
I love
Great.
that. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. That's really helpful to just pull my mind into, the most essential things to say because there's a lot to say about this topic, obviously.
It's a huge topic.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So let's go to this notion of personal accountability.
Yeah. So I'm curious as I talk about how I learned about that for you to bring in the differences or the similarities from the responsibility process because I think a lot of people conflate these terms accountability, responsibility. There are probably some other illities that people conflate that just glom them all together.
Yes.
And it was liberating for me when I went to the Coaches Training Institute to learn about how that body of knowledge holds this notion of accountability.
Hmm.
That at the end of every coaching conversation, there is this sort of precious moment where the coach helps the client design an accountability to themselves. Well,
Yes.
this was the first time I'd heard the notion of someone being accountable to themselves and the coach being there as a mirror to reflect that accountability back to the person and let them own up to it without blame and shame.
Yes.
Either I did it or I didn't do it. And in either case, the coach is going to help the other person learn from what happened in their real life. Let me just read this thing from
Oh,
this,
please.
as you can see, very much well-loved book, The
Mine
Coactive
looks the
Coaching
same.
because I was just refreshing my mind about accountability this morning and the notion of this. And I think this is appropriate for almost every conversation that happens in our world. But let's just narrow it to our business world
Yeah.
because so often we have these really good conversations, but then nothing happens.
Yes.
We find ourselves having the conversation again, maybe in a slightly different flavor a week from now, and then maybe again and again.
Yes.
So, just when I talk about coaching and I talk about clients and coaches, just think of like any two people in a conversation, right? So, I love this idea that the action of coaching or any conversation takes place in the client's life. So, in other words, between now and the next time you have another conversation, right?
Yes.
So that's true of everything. Every meeting we leave the meeting hopefully with a really clear accountability. And then we're helping one another stay true to that the next heartbeat meeting that we come to. And we
Yes.
know we have structures in Agile that help us with this.
Of course.
But I love the professional coaching definition of this. So it's this. One of the defining qualities of coaching is that it creates accountability, a measuring tool for action and a means of reporting on learning. Pretty
Hmm.
good, right?
Hmm.
It's important to be clear here at the outset that accountability is simply this: clients give an account of their action and learning. There's no judgment, blame, or scolding. Clients give an account of what they committed to. What were the results? What worked? What didn't work? What would they do differently next time? Just a couple more sentences here because I think this is
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Accountability helps keep clients on track as they plan and commit to action and as they learn from the action they take or don't take in some cases. Accountability gives structure to the ongoing coaching. As coaches, we hold clients accountable not to see them perform or even to measure how well they perform, but to empower them in making the changes they want to make. Along the way, we celebrate their achievements and dig into the obstacles they encounter. Accountability is the fundamental structure that keeps the conversation going. And I would say accountability is the fundamental structure that keeps progress going.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what was coming up for me, the empowerment part of it, right? The empowerment, the learning, the improvement, all those things. I think, like, to me, what we're talking about is an internal process, because it's a type of accountability that we talk about where my boss holds me accountable. And to me, that's not anywhere near as effective as if I'm holding myself accountable.
Yeah. Yep. And let's just give a little lesson to folks here about how this works, at least in the coactive coaching world, Mike. There's a little bit of a formula, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You want to give it?
Yeah. The way I was taught is towards the end, it's like, okay, so what are you going to do to keep this alive or move it forward? Like, whatever the question. And when will you do it by? And how will I know?
Mm-hmm. Exactly that.
Yeah.
And so you just design with the client whatever kind of support would help them stay accountable to themselves. And that's a really important distinction because, as you just said, we all have sort of this bad taste in our mouth from the type of top-down accountability, which is very much laden with blame and shame and recrimination.
Absolutely.
And so this idea of bringing in this coaching lens and this coaching skill set to help people be accountable to what they said they wanted to do, this is a way of reversing that history of the power over use of accountability.
Yeah. And shifting the power to be within.
Yeah.
Right? Like, as a coach or a leader or a friend or a parent, like whatever it is, it's shifting the accountability to be within. Because the ideal state to me is nobody has to hold me accountable.
That's right. That's right. I mean, I do find that over time, the people I work with, their accountability muscle grows, and they are much more able to keep themselves accountable without as much structure, without as much checking in. And God, what a feeling that is. What a feeling that is to, say you're going to do something and actually do it, or learn from whatever got in your way,
Yes.
without beating yourself up.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Because it could be the thing you thought was important isn't even that important to you.
Yeah.
But there's learning in that.
Exactly. And you could find out that there's this huge blocker that's not only a blocker for this thing, but a blocker for all kinds of things in your life. And then that's the thing to focus on.
Yeah.
What great learning.
Yeah.
So how does this compare with the notion of responsibility as you understand it?
Great question. I was just going to go there. When it comes to personal accountability, let me go here first. External accountability will often reinforce the mindsets of blame and shame or whatever, because you didn't do this. You're not going to get a raise. You're not going to get a promotion. Hopefully not so extreme, but extreme examples. But from a personal responsibility point of view, it is the mindsets of blame, justify, shame, and obligation are normal places for us to go, right? And so in responsibility, it's about building that awareness, just like we've been talking, right? And so I fall off the rails all the time. I go to one of those mindsets. We all do it, right? And so it's the exact same thing. Can I see it, right? And have the awareness of it, because then I can confront it.
Yeah.
We have a comment here. I'm just going to pop it up here so everyone can see it. I thought it was very powerful what Lyssa highlighted, that there is a definition for accountability that's relatively simple to be able to give an account of what was done.
Yeah, Dimitri, I love that comment because I don't know, Dimitri, if you're in the agile space or not. A lot of people, even if they're not in the agile space, are aware of this. So there are structures, practices we do in Agile that help us build this accountability muscle and help us move away from that history of blame and shame and the power over use of these things where someone has power over you. The daily stand-up is the perfect example. You arrive, you say, here's what I did toward the sprint goal that I said I was going to do yesterday. Here's what I didn't do. Here's what got in my way. That's the classic structure, and it's a time of learning. Now, in order to support people in being able to just report what happened, as you said, Dimitri, just like, here's an account of what happened without a lot of emotion and hiding. It's really useful to create an environment of curiosity. When someone says, I didn't do this, instead of, oh my God, you're such a loser, I can't believe it, or whatever, or we're going to be in trouble. It's more like, okay, so what got in your way? Because we need to learn from that.
Mm-hmm.
One of the biggest behaviors that I find with teams, this is also with leadership teams who are learning to be accountable to one another, is how often we let each other slide.
Yes.
Oh,
It's
boy.
okay.
We don't even say it's okay. Like sometimes we do that, but most of the time we just sort of avert our eyes and sort of pretend the person didn't even
Good
say
point.
that they got nothing done.
Yeah,
I mean, it's the most bizarre behavior to watch amongst a group of people.
I agree.
And when you have that daily heartbeat of like creating a commitment to your team members, the way that Agile frameworks, the Scrum framework in particular, has us do, then it's a bite-sized time frame. It's a place to build this muscle because the stakes are not so high. But even with the stakes not being high, it takes a lot of support to allow people to just come clean with what happened.
It does. And it's something that takes time because people have to shed the old beliefs and behaviors to get to that point. And I love what you're saying there, the stand-up, but the review, the retrospective, like all of it.
All of it. All of it. These are all accountability cycles. Well, these are all, let me just put it this way. These are all cycles where we could have healthy accountability.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's where, there has to obviously be enough safety that people can feel okay saying, I didn't get anything done.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, but I love teams that then go, okay, how can we support you?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Right? Talk about a way to help build personal accountability in that person, that they're not afraid to say what's true, but also to help them move forward from there.
Yeah. I mean, we're so afraid of retribution or having made a mistake that we now have to bear, become vulnerable and bear ourselves, to say we made a mistake. I mean, and this is everywhere in our society. I mean, I often think about, when lawmakers make laws, wouldn't it be awesome if there was, a short period of time where after the law has been in place for a while, we do a retrospective. We take stock. Did the law have the intended outcome? What were the negative unintended consequences? Because there are negative unintended consequences of every single thing we do.
Absolutely.
And then we can just say, okay, what pieces are we going to keep? What pieces are we going to let go? How do we need to adjust? But I think that we so often try to avoid accountability.
Yeah.
And it's baked into every layer of our daily life.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing responsibility processes taught me is when we're in that position where we want to or need to hold ourselves accountable or responsible, whichever word, like there's a lot of anxiety with that. It doesn't feel good. Something in our past history has us saying, oh, wow, I'm going to get in trouble, the retribution. This isn't going to work well, like whatever it is. And we're actually responding to that anxiety as opposed to going, how do I move past this? How do I learn from this and, make it not happen again?
Yeah, so now you're talking to the thing that I've been working with my clients on so much, especially in this world we're in right now, is working with one's own internal state.
Yes.
And being responsible, there's another word, responsible, being responsible for our own internal state at every moment.
Yes. Yeah. And how does that internal state cause me to react or respond to whatever's going on?
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So, we've been going at a pretty fast clip here, you and me, Mike. We got our adrenaline has gotten up. So let's just do something right now that
Hmm.
will help people understand how simple this could be. So let's say that it pretty soon you're going to have to say what you did not get done, even though you said you were going to do it.
Hmm.
Pretty soon it's going to be unavoidable. You're about to tell people about this, and you might notice that you're getting a little bit wound up.
Hmm.
How it shows up in me is my heart rate comes up. Sometimes I'll even get like a rash that crawls up my neck. For sure, I can feel a tightness in my chest, and I can feel myself almost out of breath, kind of like I am right now, actually.
Hmm.
So that's how I know it's there. And how do you know it's there, Mike?
Similar type of things. Heart rate comes up. I'll start heating up. Like I won't
Mm,
get a rash thing happening, but I might even perspire
yeah.
in some cases.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I notice my thoughts start running away. Like I'm
Okay.
processing really, really fast.
Yeah. And for me, my thoughts freeze.
Mm,
Um, well, that's interesting. They do two things. They freeze, and then they put on the armor, and they get ready to sort of uh, um, be the first mover to like fend off the attack I think is going to come.
yes.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. So that's how it happens for you and me. For everyone who listens to this, is going to be a little bit different for you, but it's useful to know what those early warning signs are. Because as soon as you feel them, in order to take responsibility for your own state, you just need to breathe. And we're going to do it here. Where everyone, right now, as you're watching this, we're going to take each of you on your own time 4 deep, even breaths. 4 deep, even breaths. Here we go. And now, as you're ready to sort of reconnect with yourself, you might put your hands on your legs and look around the room a little bit and then reconnect with the screen after that. And I'm looking over at Mike here, so hi, Mike. So, Mike, what's here now if you were to describe your state?
Oh, much calmer. Like heart rate settled back down.
Mm-hmm.
Right. The mind isn't going as quick.
Yeah. And for me, I can now, I don't know exactly what it is, but it feels to me like a clearer path has opened up for the rest of this conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but I do trust that we'll follow it. But metaphorically speaking, as we were talking before, there were so many divergent things coming off of the same trunk.
Yes.
And now I feel like, something is coming into focus, and yeah, and so it's slower and maybe deeper. We'll find out.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you for that.
yeah.
Right. The power of breath.
Yeah, so simple, right? It's just one of a handful of really simple things you can do right in the middle of a meeting. You don't need anyone's approval to do it. You just
Oh.
can do it. I like to make a noise when I breathe out, but if you're in a meeting, you don't have to do that. You just breathe out through your nose, no big deal. Well, let's just be clear about what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So, there's something called neuroception. And neuroception is the brain body's recognition of what's going on in the environment, and it's the thing that picks up a threat. And a threat used to be literally that we could be eaten by a predator of some sort, but now the threats, like threats to our ego, to our intellect, any kind of threat to a feeling of safety or identity or value,
Yeah.
gets kicked up the same way in our bodies as if we were literally in a life or death situation. So neuroception happens so much faster than perception. So much faster. So our bodies get activated even though we're not really in danger, right? And so as soon as we notice that, we can interrupt the cascade of stress hormones that have happened, because neuroception's job is to detect a threat and get us ready to, escape this threat or take
Yes.
down this threat, and so we can interrupt that cascade of stress hormones just by breathing, what we just did.
Hmm.
And then all of a sudden, what are called the executive functions, this newer part of our brain, they come back online. And as you say, Mike, you're calmer. I can see now a clearer path ahead. Just things, your brain can function better.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I've seen this many times with teams where things are escalating. They're in a
Mhm.
meeting or doing an exercise, like whatever it is, and just getting them to pause,
Mhm.
breathe. Because I think what's actually going on is they have really strong values about doing a good job. They want to hold themselves accountable, right, to creating some kind of good outcome. And for whatever reason, it's going sideways. And just getting them to breathe,
Mhm.
to tap into that power, gets the whole team to settle. Now it opens up, as you put it, the executive function, but the creativity.
Yeah. Yeah. Decision making in that heightened state of stress is a really bad idea.
It's really hard to do.
Yeah. So we've talked about accountability, but we haven't yet talked about how that's related to the high dream of this podcast,
Mhm.
helping people bring forth their ideas.
Yeah. Yeah, here's what I love is
Mhm.
people bring forward more of their ideas. That they hold themselves accountable for bringing forward their ideas. Because right now the world needs it. Like we're entering into a recession potentially. I'll put the word potentially there. There's climate change, like the list goes on. And it's people's ideas that will change the world.
Yeah. 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 Oh, you reminded me of what I tell myself all the time when it feels sort of dark and despairing. It's the very simple thing that, human beings' decisions are what got us here. We can make different decisions, you know? And I love the idea of accountability being able to support someone in new behaviors that would allow them to bring their ideas forward more often,
Hmm.
you know? And I think that as I think about the conversations I've had that are using the professional coaching skill set, but also the ones with teams, and we're coming up to action items at the end. Um, having the person who said I'm going to do that thing define what done means,
Yeah.
define their time,
Hmm.
and how they want to be checked in with about that. I
Yeah.
think that's an application of the same idea to sort of the environment of a business meeting. And I wonder, I hope that if someone has that kind of control about designing how they're going to be accountable, that they'd be willing to say, "I'll do that one.
Yes.
I'll put my ideas toward that one."
Yes. And actually, for me, that's the more powerful times. Like people who go, I'll do that. Like they're actually owning it at that point,
Hmm.
as opposed to being assigned something, because that's no longer internal.
Yeah, yeah, interesting. I wonder. I'm really curious to know what those of you who are watching this think about accountability, and I really hope that you'll put comments in and engage with us about this, because I think it's a big topic. And I think it's one of the things that, because in my opinion, we're not doing this well in many business environments,
Yeah.
that things just slide off the rails so far,
Hmm.
and then we could have adjusted 10,000 ways by the time they've slid off the rails so far that now we're all embarrassed to look at it.
Yeah. Yeah. It becomes one of those problems that's so big, we almost give up on it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. I would love if people keep engaging in the comments. We're almost out of time here, but please engage in the comments. Lyssa and I will continue to interact on it. It is a big topic, and it can be a bit scary too, a bit daunting, especially if you're in a corporate environment that's more about the top-down type of accountability, right? That can put a lot of weight on people. But this personal accountability, let's engage with this more. Because when it comes to how do we keep pivoting, the 1,000 ways to change your direction and correct what's going on, right? Before it becomes too big a problem. For me, that's the key. We hold ourselves accountable to creating some kind of better world around us.
I like that.
Yeah. Oh, we got one more comment here before we bring closure from Dimitri.
Awesome.
I'm updating the objective of my sprint reviews as we speak to say accountability opportunity. Yeah, the thing I would offer there is personal accountability.
Yeah.
That's the opportunity.
Yeah.
How do we together amplify that?
Well, and what Dimitri is bringing up is like a little side thing that's coming up for me is one of the things I think that we haven't done as well as we could in sprint reviews is that since we have stakeholders there, that is the perfect time to ask them to be accountable to the team, because this is the time to reveal the systemic blockers that are preventing the team from delivering as they hoped for, or as much as they could have, or as well as they could have. And so it's a good opportunity to, to say to, hey, director of release management, here's what we need. When will you do that? By when? And how can we help you hold that accountability? Because it's in our way.
Yeah, I love that. Absolutely. Dimitri, thank you for the questions and the comments there. That's awesome. Lyssa, as we bring this to a close, not closing thoughts, what would you like people to take from this?
What I would like people to take from this is that we are in a world that relies on many more of us to take up our personal agency, to be responsible for the world we want to see and for the changes we want to see in it. That's actually the definition of leadership from the Coactive Leadership book.
Mm-hmm.
So let me just say that again: to be responsible for our world and for the changes we want to see in it. Now more than ever, I think we all are called to take up our own personal power and our own personal agency to do that. And this ability, this sort of muscle that we can build to have accountability to ourselves is really just a great help in being able to be that kind of leader in the world. And we are all that kind of leader in the world.
Yeah, we all have that within us if we choose it. Awesome. Thank you so much, Lyssa. This has been wonderful. I can't believe it went by like that, but
it did.
Yeah. Lyssa, if people want more information or to reach out to you, how can they find you?
Everything is in one place on lyssaadkins.com, but you have to know how to spell it. My parents did a wonderful job for search engine optimization, but not so much for ease of knowing the name. So it's LYSSAADKINS.com.
Awesome. All right. Once again, thank you so much for being here with me.
My pleasure.
Wonderful conversation. And for everybody else, thank you for listening. Thank you, Dimitri, for being here with us. There were a couple other people here, so if you got questions, comments, thoughts, please keep it going in the chat. The next episode of this is actually coming up on Monday, August 22nd. I know it's a couple weeks out. Me personally, I'm disappearing for a couple weeks for some much needed rest off the grid. So I look forward to when I come back, and my guest is going to be Lynn Young, and we're going to talk about, I should have wrote this down, badass sagers. Lynn's a coach. Yeah, I love the topic, and Lynn's pretty energizing too. So please join us. Look for the announcement for that really soon. Thanks, everyone, and have yourself a great weekend.